Long-term viewers of high-playing games will know I enjoy a genre mashup, and Saikyo Robots is one of those. It starts off like an action roguelike and feels very indistinct, but very quickly then adds in base building and tower defense gameplay to juggle as well as action rogueliking. And then you'll have some resource management, resource collecting and mining, and also quite a fair bit of arena shooting gameplay going on at the same time too. And this kind of melting pot of ideas is really what makes Saikyo Robots an interesting and engrossing game to play if it gets under your skin. The idea with this game is that you're travelling through a wasteland trying to fight for your survival and escape the Cloud King and his army. His army attacks every night, and the game is divided into day and night cycle for each level in the campaign of story that you're working your way through. Unlike most action roguelikes where everything feels quite RNG related and you don't know quite what you're getting, each level is a specific map design with certain goals for you to achieve, and it's normally breaking through the wasteland and building bridges so that you can cross over the level to get to the other side, or simply surviving a certain amount of days and nights and collecting a certain amount of scrap within the time limit before then you get overwhelmed by the Cloud King's army just sending an onslaught that you simply can't survive. Regardless of what type of level you're trying to get through, you'll start off at your base looking at how you can build up factories and start a production line of bringing robots to your army to then take with you out into the wasteland during the daytime to collect resources, maybe build bridges or other structures elsewhere, and kind of open the path for you to go and discover more places to build more resources, to then command those robots to carry the resources that they've dug out and mined back to your base and your factory, to then turn them into either new factories which can design and build more things for you, or to upgrade your factories, and that then means that your robots might be able to carry more or have more HP or deal more damage on their attacks. And robots are largely split into melee attacks and ranged shooter robots, and you kind of have a factory for each, and you can choose which ones you want to invest in depending on what you're struggling with to deal with. That all takes place over the daytime, and you will come across little troops out in the wasteland that will trigger battles. That will then bring you XP, which then helps you level up both yourself but also your main factory and base as well. And so again, you get to choose where you're going to store all of this scrap, how you're going to use it. Do you upgrade your factories? Do you upgrade your robots? Do you upgrade the turrets that are protecting your environment? That's another way to kind of think about things. Or potentially the gates and the front doors or the side doors, because you're always in a big square, working out how you're going to bolster the doors, which gives you more time when nighttime comes and the horde descend on you, for you to then clear them out and kill them so that you can survive another night. All of those decisions are up to you. You can also choose to sacrifice some of your robots too, and that will then give you improvements during this level over time that are like big buffs. But again, you've got to have produced those robots and then have a decent production line going to replace them quite quickly. And that means that they're very much towards the end goal to survive the last few nights and waves to kind of get to the end of the level and progress through the game. Graphically and stylistically, Saikyo Robots is workmanlike. I wasn't enamoured, I wasn't repulsed. It's the minimalistic design that kind of makes things quite easy to pick out and understand in general, particularly when you're dealing with the wasteland and who's the enemy and who's not, and so on and so forth, because it can get quite busy and there's lots of different attacks going on all at once. You're trying to work out where's safe, and from that point of view the graphics actually are quite workmanlike and do quite well. Where I did struggle sometimes though was I didn't quite understand always every time which robots were under my control, and that's because you can order them to do different things, and then you press a button and it kind of draws a sphere of influence around you to gather up all of the army that's within it that's yours, for you to then command either to collect resources or to defend or to go into an attack mode. And it felt slightly clunky, but also visually I couldn't understand how many robots are under my control. It gives you a number of how many are at that point in time up in the top left hand corner of the screen, but the visual cues didn't really carry through for me, because some of them will still be going off collecting resources or just totally ignoring what I've said. And that's particularly annoying because your robot army is quite kamikaze-like. They have no self-preservation whatsoever. They're lemmings to the slaughter. And so watching them kind of get decimated when you thought they were under your control, when actually they're going off doing something else, is quite frustrating and a bit sad at times. The other thing I'd say about Saikyo robots is that the difficulty curve is more like a difficulty wave. And so sometimes the game really lays it on thick with tons of enemies flying at you, and it becomes more like an arena twin stick shooter than it does anything else. And particularly when you've got some chunky bosses running around that are spawning like tens of cannon fodder units as well, it really becomes quite busy on screen, and you're having to be very dexterous in moving around the screen and dodging attacks where you can. The kind of flip side of that is sometimes that occurs really early on in a level, or you stumble into a part of the level that you're not really supposed to get to first, and levels appear like they're quite open plan, but there is blatantly hierarchies in where you're supposed to go, and it kind of then funnels what is perceived as an open world, open exploration level into a much more stringent funnel. But you're not to know that unless you go around and make mistakes. And that felt a little bit, again, restrictive and not confusing necessarily, but it did limit some of my enjoyment because I had less choice than I really was perceived to be given. Those negatives and niggles said, I did enjoy my time with Saikyo robots. I would recommend it if you're a particular fan of action roguelikes and base builders and seeing that kind of thing come together and commanding an army and sending them off to do your dirty deeds. Just know that its minimalistic design won't win any aesthetic awards, and like the difficulty curve is a little bit all over the place, and if you can ride that out quite happily, then you've got plenty of hours of enjoyment ahead. Saikyo Robots is out now.